So you guys may have noticed this is a little bit of a different setup than usual. I'm currently on vacation in Florida, which is really nice, but I still wanted to be able to make some videos while I was here, so I actually kind of have to make do with what we have. This actually is a nicer backdrop than I have at home. I'm still working on setting up a more permanent setup to do this kind of stuff at home, but I think this looks really nice. If you hear some excess noise in the background, it's the dishwasher. It's pretty loud. So as you may have noticed from the vlog I uploaded to the channel last month, and from this t-shirt that I picked up while I was there, I did get to visit Holiday World, an amusement park, or theme park I should say, in Santa Claus, Indiana for the first time this May. And today I wanted to talk about their somewhat famous wooden roller coaster, Raven. Now I go ahead and say right now, this is probably not the only Raven review you're ever going to see on the channel. I'm someone whose thoughts and opinions are always changing on things, and I think just doing one review and never going back to give it a second thought is kind of a bad idea. So this is my May 2019 review as of when I wrote it in May of 2019, but if I go back and write it again, which I know I will at some point, then of course my opinions may be different, and so I'll publish a different review then. But these are my most up-to-date opinions as of the publishing of this video. Raven was Holiday World's first wooden roller coaster, opening in 1995, and many enthusiasts would consider this ride a classic. It was manufactured by the now defunct Custom Coasters International, started on that. Short would be CCI, I can't speak today, but this was not only the first roller coaster that I rode at Holiday World, but also the first roller coaster I ever rode manufactured by CCI, and let me just say, for the most part, I was quite impressed. Now, quick disclaimer, I only got one ride on Raven, and that was in the back row a little bit after it had rained, so the track was pretty wet and slick, probably running a bit faster than usual, and again, back row. And that's the only ride that I have to go off of right now, so my expectations or my feedback I'm giving may be higher than what your ride was. I'm not sure, but I think wet track backseat is probably a pretty dang good ride on Raven, but again, that's all I have to go off of, so I may be kind of overhyping a little bit in this review, but here you go. Raven's stats are really not all too impressive, but as I will reiterate time and time again on this channel, you don't need to have great stats to be a great ride. Raven has a track length of 2,800 feet in a duration of 1 minute and 30 seconds, which I think is a really ideal ride length for this type of ride. When I rode it, I was expecting it to be a little bit on the short side, but it felt perfect. It really didn't need to be any longer in my opinion. It was just right the way it was. The drop is only 85 feet, but when you're actually on the ride, you don't feel higher than 85 feet, but the drop itself feels longer than 85 feet, which of course I'm okay with that. It is pretty nice. And it only reaches a maximum speed of 48 miles an hour, and I will admit, it doesn't feel all too fast, but it really doesn't need to go fast. That's not really what this ride is all about. Now, one continuity I noticed on my visit to Holiday World is the cheesy and half-hearted theming that's present throughout the park, but it's just charming enough to make you actually enjoy it for some reason, and Raven definitely has this to an extent. When you walk into the queue, there's a big sign for a graveyard, and you actually queue kind of through kind of a graveyard they have set up, but this all completely falls apart when you enter the station building. The stairwell going up to the station is just pitch black darkness, just painted black. Yay! Darkness. And then of course there's no theming during the actual ride experience itself, but it's a classic Woody. You really don't come to expect theming on these types of rides, so it's really not a big deal. Anyways, Raven is capable of running 2 trains at once. However, when we were there, it was only running 1 train for the entire day, which was not horrible per se because the lines were relatively short, but it just means I don't really have an idea of how they handle the 2 train operations. With 1 train, dispatches were not exactly speedy, but they were no way slow either. They were just decent, if you know what I mean. Of course, in classic wood coaster fashion, these are PTC trains. PTC trains are mostly fine in my opinion, but they could really use some more advanced padding, as most of my memories with wooden coasters with these trains is being painfully slammed against the side of the train and against the seat divider, which is even worse because it kind of shoves its way under your rib, and it's just not a comfortable experience. It is quite painful. Although this was sort of a non-issue on Raven, as it's much smoother than a lot of other classic wooden coasters I've ridden, but that doesn't mean there wasn't a bump or two where I think there could have been a bit more padding to protect me from the side of the trains. Okay, so now we gotta talk about the actual ride experience. So, platform all clear, Raven clear for flight, pull out of the station, through the maintenance shed area, dive under the brake run, and we're going up the lift. And let me just say, I think it's really neat that on all three of Holiday World's wooden coasters, they have flags at the top of the lifts. I have no idea why, I just always thought that was kind of neat. So then you crest the top of the lift and get an excellent view of the parking lot. I don't know what it is with parks and coaster lift hills showing you the parking lot, but most of the rest of Raven goes through the middle of the woods in the middle of nowhere, so it's really a non-issue. Up until this point, I really was not expecting all too much from this coaster, but it was about when I went over the first drop that I realized I was in for a truly memorable wood coaster experience. Remember, we were riding in back row, so I got whipped over that first drop, and it honestly felt, and this sounds pretty out there, and some of you may not believe me on this, it felt exactly like the drop on The Beast at Kings Island. Despite that ride being nearly 60 feet longer of a drop, it felt exactly the same to me. I'm not trying to overhype Raven where people are going to be disappointed. Remember, I rode back row when the track was slick after rain, so just gotta keep that in mind. Now, most of Raven's actual ride experience consists of what I'm going to call airtime flats. Instead of flying over an airtime hill like you normally would, you kind of pop up into a flat section of track, receiving a nice little pop of air, glide across a straight section for a split second before diving off into what feels like a whole nother full-fledged drop. And that's basically what most of Raven's actual ride layout consists of, and for some reason I absolutely love this. I mean, if every coaster had it, it wouldn't really be cool, but it was just kind of unlike anything I'd experienced on a coaster before, especially a wood coaster before, and it was really interesting because instead of just having airtime hills, you really felt like you were getting like 6 or 7 full-fledged first drops out of this thing, and it was really cool. I have to say, one of the coolest moments on this coaster for me was probably the swoop by the lake. If you don't know what I'm talking about, basically there's one drop where you then go straight into a bank turn right next to a lake, which is really cool. It's one of those elements on the coaster that's not thrilling by any means. It doesn't really add to the thrill, but it just kind of makes the ride experience a bit more memorable, adds some more substance to it, if you know what I mean. Despite being one of the smoother wooden coasters I've ridden, Raven still definitely feels like a bumpy, old, classic-style wooden coaster, and there were definitely a couple moments where I felt quite painfully jerked around. Not quite as often as some other wooden coasters. Legend. Legend review coming at some point soon. But overall, it wasn't a horrible ride experience. It wasn't painful to the point I said I wasn't going to ride again. It was just kind of like, ouch, that didn't feel great. Overall, Raven exceeded my expectations on pretty much all fronts. Every single drop on the ride was surprisingly thrilling, which just shows that things like, you know, ride track profiling and stuff like that can really make a big difference, not just the size of the drop, because none of those drops were enormous, but they were all thrilling for some reason. I don't know, Raven just kind of had this extra oomph to it that I just don't get on other wood coasters. That may have had something to do with the ride I got. Maybe I just got a really good ride. Again, backseat when the track was nice and slick. Who knows, maybe I'll go and ride it again another time and it won't be quite as good, but overall, I absolutely loved it. So yes, CCI, you've impressed me. So one day I really hope to go ride your larger coasters like Shivering Timbers, and I really hope that I'm not going to be disappointed. So at the end of the day, Raven is not one of those like mind-boggling rides that everyone has to get out to Holiday World and try. It's not like that, but every ride doesn't have to be that. There are rides like that at every park. Every park really needs at least one truly standout attraction, which I think for Holiday World is definitely not Raven, unfortunately, but a park needs a strong supporting cast for said standout ride so that people will keep coming back to the park, and Raven does that very well for, I'd say, Voyage or Thunderbird, depending on the crowd you're looking at, are the big standout coaster at Holiday World, and Raven just does a good job supporting them by providing a great ride experience for people that are already here. So with that, I ask, have any of you guys ridden Raven, and if so, what'd you think about it? And if you haven't ridden Raven, is it on your list of coasters that you want to try at some point in the future? Anything that you want to say? Of course, I always love to read and respond to all of your comments, and hopefully I'll have more coaster reviews coming soon. So if you like the way that I do these, you can consider subscribing so you won't miss any more, and leave a like if you want to see more coaster reviews. I've gotten to the point I just kind of make videos whenever I want, on whatever I want. I don't really pay attention to what people exactly like and don't like. It's kind of my thing, but giving it a like will make me more happy. How about that? And hopefully I'll see you guys soon. Bye-bye.